She isn't angry. She doesn't fight. In fact, she might be perfectly polite, doing everything she is supposed to do in the relationship. But there is a silent distance growing in the room, a complete lack of active desire that you can feel in your bones, even if you cannot find a single concrete thing to point to. You lie in the same bed, you eat at the same table, yet you feel like you are trying to reach across a vast, invisible canyon that grows wider with every passing day. This is not a temporary phase of fatigue, and it is not something she is doing to punish you. It is a quiet, systematic withdrawal of her emotional and physical presence. She is physically there, but the spark of active curiosity and physical longing has been completely extinguished. If you've ever felt the deep, confusing pain of being physically close to your partner while feeling completely rejected, this video is for you. We are not going to talk about obvious signs like arguments, shouting matches, or outright refusals. Those are easy to see and easy to diagnose. Instead, we are going to explore the 11 hidden, psychologically documented signs that emotional and physical desire has shut down, and exactly what this means for the future of your relationship. By understanding these subtle shifts in her behavior, language, and somatic responses, you will gain the absolute clarity you need to stop guessing, stop doubting your own intuition, and start addressing the true state of your connection. Most men assume that a relationship is in trouble only when there are constant fights, loud disagreements, or visible tension in the home. They believe that as long as the household is quiet and things run smoothly, everything is fine. This is the first and most dangerous illusion in relationship psychology. It is called polite compliance, and it is the quiet graveyard of active desire. In clinical terms, this is a form of passive withdrawal, where a partner decides that expressing their true feelings is no longer worth the effort, choosing instead to play a role to maintain peace. She acts like a good roommate who doesn't want to rock the boat, but she is checked out emotionally. When a woman still feels desire for you, she is an active participant in the relationship's emotional current. She initiates conversations, she suggests spontaneous plans, and she actively seeks your presence in a room. She cares enough to disrupt the peace if something feels wrong because she wants to fix the connection. But when desire dies, it is often replaced by a smooth, frictionless compliance. She agrees to whatever you suggest. She says yes to the restaurant, yes to the movie, and yes to the weekend plans. But if you pay close attention, you will realize that she never initiates anything herself. She has no active preference because she has no active investment in the outcome. She has shifted from being a partner to being a passenger in your shared life. She is going through the motions because it is easier to comply than to explain the massive, terrifying void growing inside her. If you ask her what she wants to do, she will give you a generic, polite response like, "Whatever you want, I don't mind." This is not flexibility. It is a complete lack of investment. She is no longer investing her emotional energy into steering the relationship. She is simply letting it drift, maintaining a peaceful facade to avoid the exhausting, painful conversation that both of you know is eventually coming. Affection is the currency of physical desire, and when desire fades, the way a woman touches you undergoes a profound structural shift. In a thriving relationship, physical contact is spontaneous, unstructured, and continuous. It is a hand brushing against your shoulder as she walks past you in the hallway, a playful squeeze of your arm while laughing, or a lingering hug that lasts a few seconds longer than necessary. These micro-touches are the physical manifestations of a nervous system that feels safe, connected, and drawn to your body. They are the unconscious signals that she desires your physical presence. When desire disappears, spontaneous touch is the very first thing to go. It is replaced entirely by what psychologists call functional touch. This is touch that serves a specific social, domestic, or transactional purpose. It is the quick, dry peck on the cheek when one of you leaves for work. It is the brief, polite hug when greeting each other in front of friends to maintain the appearance of a happy couple. It is a mechanical contact, devoid of any lingering warmth or physical curiosity. It is the touch of two polite roommates who respect each other's space, but no longer long for each other's skin. If you pay close attention to her body language, you will notice the physical micro-retreat. If you put your hand on her waist, her muscles will tense slightly before she relaxes. Or she will gently find a logical reason to move away a few seconds later, perhaps to check something in the kitchen or grab her phone. She is not rejecting you with anger. She is rejecting you with a polite, physical boundary. Her body is communicating a barrier that her voice has not yet found the courage to speak. She does not want to hurt you, but her nervous system cannot lie. What I'm about to describe might be uncomfortable because it's going to sound like someone you know. In relationship therapy, there is a metric that is far more predictive of a breakup than sexual frequency: emotional curiosity. When a woman is attracted to you, she is intensely curious about your inner world. She wants to know what you are thinking, how you felt about a difficult meeting at work, what is stressing you out, and what you dream about. She actively listens and asks follow-up questions because your mind is a place she wants to inhabit. This is what John Gottman calls building love maps, the continuous cognitive updating of your partner's landscape. When desire dies, this curiosity is extinguished. She stops asking. She might still ask functional questions like how your day was, or if you bought the milk, because those are necessary to run the household. But she will no longer ask the questions that probe your emotional state. She doesn't ask how you are really feeling about a situation or what is on your mind tonight when she sees you staring blankly into space. She has closed the book on your inner world, and she has no desire to open it again. If you tell her about a difficult situation at work, she will offer a polite, generic response, and then she will quietly change the subject, look at her phone, or return to her chores. She no longer has the emotional budget to invest in your inner life. Her withdrawal is not accidental. It is a subconscious protection mechanism. By closing the door to your emotional world, she is ensuring that she doesn't have to feel the crushing guilt of no longer desiring the man who inhabits it. It is easier to pretend everything is fine than to face the reality of her disconnection. I want to ask you something directly. Do you recognize this pattern in your relationship right now? Or in one that ended? Tell me in the comments, because the conversations there are always more honest than anything I can say in the video. Have you noticed that she is suddenly overwhelmed by a never-ending list of chores, tasks, and responsibilities? The laundry is always urgent. The kitchen must be spotless before she can sit down and talk. She has to finish an endless work project, or she has to call her mother, or she is simply too exhausted to do anything but sleep the moment her head hits the pillow. She is always in motion, always organizing, always distracted. She has no time for you because she has made sure that her schedule is too full to allow for any intimacy. In psychology, this is known as the defense of constant busyness. When a person is facing an uncomfortable truth that they are not ready to confront, they will subconsciously fill every square inch of their schedule to avoid it. For a woman who has lost desire for her partner, busyness is the perfect, unassailable shield. It is a socially acceptable barrier that protects her from intimacy without requiring her to say no directly. It allows her to avoid the vulnerability of connection while maintaining the high ground of productivity. It is a shield because you cannot argue with it without looking like an insensitive, demanding partner. How can you complain about a lack of intimacy when she is genuinely tired from working, managing the household, or taking care of the family? But the truth is, this exhaustion is often psychological rather than physical. Her nervous system is using physical fatigue as a protective wall to ensure that there is never a quiet, slow, unstructured moment where intimacy could naturally arise. By keeping her body in a constant state of motion and productivity, she guarantees that the question of physical connection never even has to be asked. Language is the mirror of our cognitive maps, and the pronouns a woman uses can tell you everything about where you stand in her heart. When a couple is emotionally aligned and desire is present, they naturally speak in collaborative terms. They plan the future using we, our, and us. We should go to the beach this weekend, our next vacation. We need to figure out how we want to spend the holidays. Their minds naturally project a shared path where both partners are actively walking together. When desire dies, her language undergoes a subtle but profound transition. The we is quietly dismantled and replaced by I, me, and my. She begins to speak of the future as an individual journey rather than a collaborative shared one. She is no longer planning a joint venture. She is planning her own survival. She is mentally preparing for a life that does not include you. She says, I want to go to Spain next year, or I'm thinking of changing my career path, or I need to start saving money for my projects. When she talks about her social plans, she no longer invites you by default. She tells you about them as a completed decision. This linguistic shift is not a conscious choice. It is her brain preparing for a future where you are no longer a central figure. She is emotionally decoupling her life from yours, redrawing the boundaries of her identity so that she can stand alone long before she actually takes a physical step out the door. But here's the part that most relationship therapists rarely say out loud. A healthy relationship requires friction. When two people are invested in their future together, they will fight for it. They will argue, they will express their anger, and they will debate because they desperately want to close the gap between them. Fights are exhausting, but they are a sign of life. They prove that both partners still care enough to try and fix the connection, that they believe the relationship is worth the discomfort of conflict. Fights mean there is still something left to save. The most terrifying moment in a relationship is not the loud argument, it is the sudden, chilling silence of passive conflict resolution. This is when she stops arguing. This is the moment she surrenders her voice because she has realized that speaking no longer changes the outcome. She has decided that the relationship is no longer worth the emotional investment of a fight. When you raise a complaint, when you express frustration, or when a disagreement arises, she no longer fights back. She simply shrugs, nods, and says, "You're right," or whatever you say. Or, "Okay, let's just do it your way." She does this with a calm, vacant expression. Men often mistake this for peace or maturity, believing that they have won the argument or that she has finally understood their point. But the reality is far more grim. She has stopped arguing because she has stopped caring. She has resigned herself to the belief that the relationship cannot be saved, so she refuses to waste a single drop of her precious emotional energy on a fight that, in her mind, no longer matters. If this gave you something concrete to think about, the like button is how you tell the algorithm that this type of content matters. And it does matter. Here is the central point of this video, the hard truth that changes everything about how you understand desire. A woman's lack of desire is almost never a purely physical issue. It is not a random hormonal drop, and it is not a switch that just happened to break. In the female psychology and nervous system, desire is the direct byproduct of emotional safety, appreciation, and alignment. It is somatic, meaning it is deeply rooted in the physical response of the nervous system. For a woman, desire cannot exist without emotional connection. When a woman feels unseen, misunderstood, or chronically unappreciated, her nervous system registers this emotional disconnect as a state of chronic unsafety. In human biology, the nervous system has two primary states: protection or connection. It cannot be in both at the same time. And when the nervous system feels unsafe or disconnected, it activates a defense response, shifting all energy toward protection and shutting down all non-essential survival systems. Physical desire is one of them. For a woman, physical intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires safety. If that safety is gone, her body will somatically shut down. She cannot force herself to feel desire, and no amount of logical negotiation, romantic dinners, or pleading will bring it back. It is a biological lock. Her body is telling her what her mind is still trying to process, that the emotional soil of the relationship has become too dry to sustain intimacy, and until that soil is deeply nourished and rebuilt, the physical garden will remain completely barren. Stop for a second, because what I just described is not a coincidence. In a healthy partnership, there is a beautiful, delicate dance of mutual dependence. We rely on each other for emotional support, practical help, and physical protection. It is a vulnerability that binds two people together. We ask for advice, we complain about our worries, and we allow ourselves to be taken care of. This mutual reliance creates a deep bond of trust and shared responsibility. It is what makes a relationship a partnership. When desire dies, a woman will often erect what psychologists call the hyper-independent wall. She stops asking for your help, your advice, or your input on her life. She becomes an island of self-sufficiency. She no longer wants to rely on you because relying on you feels like a risk she is no longer willing to take. If her car has a flat tire, she handles it herself or calls a mechanic without mentioning it to you. If she is struggling with a difficult decision at work, she consults her friends or colleagues, leaving you entirely out of the loop. If she is upset, she processes her grief in silence or goes to therapy alone. She is systematically removing you from her support system. This is a classic avoidant attachment response. She is protecting herself from the disappointment of relying on someone she no longer feels connected to. By proving to herself that she can handle everything on her own, she is quietly rehearsing her independence, preparing her life to function smoothly without your presence. If this reframed something for you, subscribe. Every week there's a new video that goes this deep, and you're going to want to be here when the next one comes out. The human body cannot lie forever. Even when a woman is trying her absolute best to be polite, helpful, and compliant, her body will betray her through micro-expressions of dissociation. Dissociation is a psychological defense mechanism where a person mentally detaches from their physical surroundings to cope with an uncomfortable or overwhelming experience. It is a way of saying, my body is here, but I am not. It is a survival mechanism to cope with presence when connection is missing. You will see this most clearly during moments of physical proximity or simple conversations. It is the 1,000-yard stare. You are talking to her, and she is looking directly at you, but you can feel that she is not there. Her eyes are blank, wide, and glassy. If you touch her, she does not pull away, but she becomes completely still, like a statue, waiting for the contact to end. She is mentally checked out, escaping to a safe place in her mind because her physical body is trapped in a situation that no longer aligns with her heart. She might nod and say the right words, but the spark of presence is entirely missing. This dissociation is a silent cry of a nervous system under immense pressure, trying to survive the painful gap between what she is supposed to feel and what she actually feels. This next behavior is so common that most couples accept it as normal. It isn't. So, what do you do with this clarity? The most dangerous thing you can do is to react with anger, blame, or resentment. Firing accusations at her or demanding that she explain herself will only validate her emotional unsafety, driving her even further into her protective shell and proving to her nervous system that she was right to withdraw. You must also stop begging, negotiating, or trying to buy her desire back with gifts and romantic gestures. You cannot negotiate attraction, and trying to do so only reduces your value in her eyes. It makes you look desperate, which only deepens the disconnection. The only way forward is through raw, radical honesty. You must face the truth with courage and maturity, stepping out of the role of the passive bystander. Sit down with her, not to argue, accuse, or demand, but to speak the truth. You can say, I feel the distance between us. I feel that you are going through the motions, and I want you to know that I see it, and I want to understand what you are truly feeling, even if it is difficult to hear. This approach removes the need for her defense mechanisms. It gives her the safety to finally speak the truth that she's been hiding behind her busy schedules and polite smiles. From that point of raw honesty, you can either begin the long, difficult work of rebuilding the emotional safety that was lost, or you can accept with grace and maturity that the relationship has reached its natural conclusion. Understanding why this happens doesn't make it hurt less, but it does make it make sense. And when something makes sense, you can finally decide what to do with it, instead of just surviving it. So tell me, what part of this did you most need to hear? Because in my experience, the answer to that question is the most important thing you'll say today. Let's talk.